Hello, everyone. Welcome to Academic Writing, Ontology, and Epistemology. So, today we're talking about original contribution to knowledge. And we want to talk about what exactly does this mean in the context of our metaphor, you as a researcher gardening. Remember, we started off by saying that you are a gardener, you are sowing seeds, and what you really want to produce is some fruit, and that fruit is a metaphor for original knowledge. And now let's talk about this knowledge. There's many different ways of producing knowledge. And one way is to develop a whole new theory and how to actually produce that theory is a subject of all of these 19 sessions that we'll be covering together. And another way of contributing to knowledge is by bringing fresh insights to existing theory. And again, how you actually bring fresh insights to an existing theory is a whole new subject. But perhaps we should just talk about what exactly is theory. Just remember that theory is what makes us academics. That's what makes you an academic, because as a master's student and as a doctoral student, your job is to contribute to theory. And theory, you can look at theory as that fruit that you're going to harvest from your garden. It is original. Let's say you are producing apples. When you produce an apple in 2020, you could be a gardener of apples, but the apple that you are going to harvest in 2020 is completely different to an apple that you're going to harvest in 2021, and is different to the apple you harvested in 2019. Every time you harvest an apple, it's original, it is fresh, exactly as knowledge. When you are doing a master's or a doctoral thesis, what you are looking for is original contribution to that apple, to a fresh new apple, because you can't replicate an apple really. So, from an academic sense, then, what is theory? It is accepted facts that provide explanations of cause and effects around established relationships. Whole lot of words. What do I mean by accepted facts that provide explanations of cause and effects of relationships? Let us look at a very simple concept, such as motivation. What is an established fact about motivation? We know that motivation is driven by job satisfaction. And when you're satisfied with your job, you then become committed to your organization. So, can you see already that there are relationships? There is a relationship between job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and motivation. So, when we're talking of motivation theory, it is that whole network of concepts around motivation. Now, we look at theory from different angles and we create theory by coming up with propositions. I'm not going to spend too much time on how to develop a proposition, except to say that when you are doing qualitative research, you are trying to come up with propositions on the basis of your uh, qualitative research. Now, theory is also made up of assumptions. You've got to really understand the assumptions of a theory. And sometimes when you're reading your literature, they are not that clear. It's a question of you reading in between the lines and understanding the assumptions within theory. And those assumptions are found in real life examples. Again, let's go back to motivation. When we talk of motivation, what are the assumptions about motivation? They might not tell you in the literature that actually for motivation to take place, someone must be motivated, must have an incentive. And, the detail, we talk about the devil in the detail. The detail is to understand what drives that motivation. And it's different for different people, it's different for different contexts, it's different for different organizations. Other people are motivated by money. Other people are motivated by acknowledgement. Other people are motivated by supervision, um, by proper supervision. And other people are motivated by information, by access to information. And other people are motivated by inspirational leaders. So there's different sources of motivation. And that is why we do research, because you cannot assume that everyone is motivated by the same thing. Not everybody is motivated, for example, by money. Somebody who already has money wants other things from an employer, for example. Okay, that's just a simplistic way of looking at assumptions. And I was still explaining what theory is. I'm not even going to attempt to give you a comprehensive understanding of theory, except just to make you aware that theory is made up of these propositions, of these assumptions, and the smallest unit of theory is a variable. What is a variable? We are going to cover these concepts extensively as we go along. But for now, just understand that a variable is that phenomenon that is measurable, that is quantifiable, that can be assessed using data. Whether that data is measured using a questionnaire, or is measured using observation, or is measured using an instrument. For example, temperature. We use a thermometer to measure temperature. We use a survey instrument to measure motivation. As social scientists, we rely on abstract measuring instruments. So let us look now at ways to demonstrate original contribution of knowledge, because when you are doing your research, you want to focus on the fruit. That's really the reason why you're a gardener. You are not interested in many things. You are interested in making sure that the fruit that you harvest is fresh, it's original, is unique, because an apple in 2020, in the 2020 harvest, is not the same as the apple in the 2019 harvest, as I said earlier. So what we are looking at is how you demonstrate this original contribution of knowledge. So what am I doing now? I'm actually giving you the fruit, and I will be taking you through steps of getting to that fruit. But as a farmer or as a gardener, you have an idea of the harvest you want. And this session is to give you an idea of the fruit you want after your research. And you've got to understand how you are going to be showing that your fruit is original. One way of doing that from a research context is to demonstrate clarity of thought and a clear understanding of existing knowledge in the field of your study. What do I mean? So, you have to understand what kind of fruit, what kind of apple you want. There's many different types of apples. There's pink crisp apples, there's golden delicious apples. Which kind of apple are you going to produce? So you have to be well versed with that kind of knowledge, literature, theory that will give you that particular apple. So in other words, mastery of your literature is important. Mastery of the kind of apple you want. You can't produce something that you don't even know yourself. So you've got to be well versed in the theory around the knowledge you're trying to create. You have to understand the controversies and inconsistencies around that particular knowledge area. So if we talk about a pink apple and spark red, brilliant red apple, and a golden delicious apple, what are the differences between these different types of apples? What are the controversies? What are the convergence areas? How are they differ? Are they differing? And you've got to master that, because you know what you want. You want a golden delicious apple, and therefore you've got to understand how you will create a golden delicious apple instead of a pink crisp apple. And you actually have to understand the historical perspective of how the theory arrived at its present level of understanding. Earlier, I said theory is like the soil where you embed your seeds. You have to understand what kind of soil will give you a red apple or a red crisp apple versus a golden delicious apple, because it's all in the manure, in the type of soil, in the structure of the soil, in the moistness of the soil, in how you feed that soil, in the acidity of the soil, etc., etc. And all of those attributes are your literature itself. You have to understand the historical perspective of that literature, which means you've got to understand the historical perspective of the apple. Is the red apple derived from a green apple, or is the green apple derived from the red apple? To simplify this. So another way to demonstrate original contribution of knowledge is to actually carry out an empirical work that has not been done before. You have not sown seed, you have not harvested a 2020 apple. So you are actually going to do the work. You're going to plant the seeds, you're going to nurture the seeds, you're going to feed it with 2020 water, and you're going to do all that work in your garden. And that's empirical work. And we're not discussing the empirical work itself because that's for another session. So you contribute to knowledge when you provide evidence that contradicts an existing model. So what is the model of producing red apple versus the model for producing green apples? What are the policy implications of your work? And that's important because when you are producing knowledge to solve a particular problem in an organization. And obviously you would want that knowledge to inspire policy. You would want that knowledge to fill in policy gaps so that that knowledge can have an impact in an organization if it's for that purpose, or it can have positive impacts to the community or the problems that you're trying to solve in an organization or in a community or whatever context that knowledge is created for. So that's all for today, just for you to ponder on those issues and to just start thinking about creating knowledge as part of solving the problems and creating that original knowledge, and you being able to demonstrate how you've arrived at that knowledge and why is it original. So I hope that was enlightening and you've gained something, and I hope I also managed to simplify this concept of demonstrating original contribution of knowledge. Till next time, thank you. Goodbye. Cheerio.